What if I told you that everything you've ever labeled impossible is only waiting for your mind to catch up? There's a reason the Great Pyramids stand, the moon has footprints, and ideas have become empires. Every towering result you see around you, every skyscraper, every revolutionary product, every legendary legacy, started the same way with a single thought from a single individual who refused to be told it couldn't be done. The difference between ordinary and legendary isn't talent, it's mindset. It's the refusal to settle. It's the audacity to think differently and to believe that your thoughts have the power to reshape reality. This isn't just inspiration, it's instruction. Stay with me, and by the end of this message, you'll understand exactly how to train your mind to defy limitations, to think on a level where impossible becomes irrelevant, and how to take that thinking and achieve the unimaginable. Your mind is the workshop of miracles. Everything that has ever come into being first passed through the gates of thought. The airplane, the electric light, the skyscraper, the cure, the revolution, all of it began as an idea. And the origin of that idea was a single mind that dared to think it. Your mind holds this same power, but most never recognize it, much less train it. You see, your thoughts are the raw material for everything you will ever do or become. What you allow to dwell in your mental workshop becomes the blueprint for your destiny. If you think limitation, you will build boundaries around your life. If you think strength, courage, and vision, you will construct the path to greatness. The mind is not passive. It is the most active force in the universe when used with intent. And when you learn to direct it, to hold a thought long enough, to charge it with emotion, and to back it with belief, it begins to shape the very conditions of your life. Miracles are not accidents. They are the logical outcome of sustained, focused, purposeful thought. Most people let their minds wander without direction, reacting to circumstances and consumed by fear. But the one who disciplines their thinking, who builds their thoughts like a craftsman shaping steel, soon discovers they can forge results that others call impossible. The mind becomes a place where ideas are refined, where visions are crafted, where desires are molded into plans, and where plans are driven into action. And that is where the miracle begins, not in the outer world, but in the inner sanctuary of thought. Every time you close your eyes and picture yourself victorious, you're laying another stone in the foundation of your success. Every time you challenge a negative belief, you're tearing down a wall that blocked your progress. Your mind is not a place to store pain and failure. It's a place to create vision, purpose, and belief. The miracle you're waiting for is already waiting for you, but it demands that you step into your role as a conscious creator. No longer a victim of thought, but the master of it. Once you understand this, everything changes. Life no longer happens to you, it happens through you. And when your thoughts begin to align with who you're meant to be, that's when the impossible bows. That's when the miracle reveals itself, not as magic, but as the natural result of a trained and focused mind. Impossibility exists only in the mind that accepts it. The boundaries of what can or cannot be done are not written in stone. They are drawn in thought. When a man says it can't be done, what he truly reveals is the limit of his own imagination. It's not a universal truth he speaks, but a personal confession. History is a gallery of former impossibilities. Flight was impossible until someone believed it wasn't. Breaking the 4-minute mile was impossible until one man refused to accept that story. The moment someone decides that a thing is possible and pursues it with relentless determination, that thing begins to bend toward reality. It's not magic and it's not luck. It's the unyielding power of a mind that refuses to be caged. You see, the world conforms to belief. It does not care whether your belief is of limitation or of expansion. It simply responds. If you believe the world is too big, too competitive, too unforgiving, your actions will match that belief. You'll hesitate. You'll play small. You'll make decisions from fear. But if you believe that within you lies the ability to move mountains, to change your life, to break chains, you will begin to act differently. You'll take steps others won't. You'll endure what others can't. You'll see what others miss. The only real prison is in the mind. If you believe something is impossible, you have already stopped before starting. The outcome is decided not in the doing, but in the thinking that precedes it. The greatest power you will ever possess is the ability to choose your thoughts. When you reject limitation, when you stop making excuses and start asking, "How can I?" you break the spell of impossibility. The world has no shortage of doubters, critics, and skeptics, but all of them live within the walls of their own mental barriers. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to prove them wrong through action, through results, through courage. You weren't born to live according to someone else's fear. You were born to discover the reach of your own potential, and that potential begins where your excuses end. Every time you're tempted to say, "I can't," remind yourself that's a decision, not a fact. You can, but only if you will. Only if you demand more from your mind than comfort. Only if you're willing to step into the arena of difficulty and face the resistance that refines you. Greatness is never found in the minds that accept defeat. It is born in the minds that refuse to surrender, that stand firm, that stretch, that persist, that believe, especially when belief is hardest. That's where impossible becomes possible, and it always starts in the mind that dares to think so. Imagination backed by purpose becomes power, on its own. Imagination is a beautiful thing, a canvas where ideas, dreams, and visions take shape. But without purpose, it remains only a picture, floating in the clouds, untouched by reality. Purpose gives imagination its weight. It grounds the dream and compels it to take form. When a man or woman imagines a better future, a higher life, a bold achievement, and marries that vision with a deep reason, something they feel in their bones, that's when the impossible begins to move. Purpose is the fuel that transforms fantasy into mission. It sharpens the edges of a vague desire and turns it into a definite goal. It says, "This is not just a wish. This must happen. I will not live another year, another day, another moment, with this dream remaining only in my head." Imagination alone might stir emotion, but purpose commands action. It gets you out of bed when the world is still asleep. It keeps you working when others have quit. It whispers strength into your mind when your body says it's done. With purpose behind it, imagination becomes more than a mental escape. It becomes a blueprint. And that blueprint turns into movement. And that movement builds momentum. And that momentum creates results. People who achieve great things do not rely on imagination alone. They know why they must achieve them. They have seen something that others cannot see and felt something that others cannot feel. That feeling becomes a force. That force bends distractions, defeats obstacles, and dominates fear. Purpose turns daydreamers into doers. It channels imagination into direction. The man with imagination alone will talk about what he could do. The man with imagination and purpose will show you what he has done. There is an invisible strength that shows up when you know why you're doing what you're doing. It becomes easier to say no to what doesn't matter. It becomes easier to suffer for a while if that suffering is tied to something meaningful. That's the secret. Pain with purpose is fuel. Work with vision is a privilege. Struggle in service of a dream is sacred. So never underestimate the thoughts that pass through your mind. Feed your imagination, yes, but then anchor it with purpose. Ask yourself why it matters. Why must this dream live? Why must this goal be achieved? And when you answer that question with something true and personal, you'll feel the shift. You'll feel the surge of energy, the clarity of direction, the rise of inner power. That is when you become unstoppable, not because of what you hope to do, but because of what you refuse to leave undone. When imagination is backed by purpose, there is no limit to what you can create, conquer, or become. The world bows to the one who refuses to break. Not because life gets easier, but because that individual becomes harder to defeat. There is a strength that rises in a person who has made the decision not to fold, not to quit, not to yield, no matter how heavy the burden or how long the road. The truth is, life will test you. It will push you to your limits and beyond. It will try to bend your will, crush your spirit, and steal your belief. But those who rise above are not those who never fall. They are the ones who fall, bleed, cry, get up, and keep going anyway. The one who refuses to break becomes a force that the world must eventually respect. Because in time, resilience becomes louder than talent, louder than luck, louder than timing. There is something about a relentless human being that even the world can't deny. Opportunities may avoid the lazy, but they're drawn to the persistent. Doors may close for the faint-hearted, but they creak open for the one who keeps knocking. Most people stop when it gets painful. But the one who refuses to break does not see pain as a signal to quit. They see it as the price of progress. They are not naive. They know it's going to hurt. They just decide that the goal is worth it. And the world in time recognizes that decision. It cannot ignore the man or woman who keeps showing up. It cannot deny someone who has made hardship a companion, not an excuse. Eventually resistance gives way. Barriers begin to crumble. Circumstances realign themselves not because they favor you, but because you refuse to move. This kind of strength doesn't come from motivation. It comes from resolve, from a decision made deep within the soul, a decision that says, no matter how long it takes, I will not stop. No matter how many times I'm knocked down, I will rise. And when that kind of resolve lives inside a person, they walk differently. They speak differently. They carry a quiet fire that others feel. The world, though loud and chaotic, respects that fire. It may not say so at first. It may push harder, but in time the world bows, because it always must. It must bend to the one who won't. That is the unseen law of power. The world yields to those who will not surrender, not because they are lucky or special, but because they are unbreakable. And in a world that breaks so easily, that kind of strength becomes unstoppable. Burn the boats. Total commitment unlocks hidden strength. There is a moment in every person's life when they must decide if they are merely interested or fully committed. Interest says, I'll try. Commitment says, I must. And the difference between those two mindsets is the difference between a life of frustration and a life of transformation. When you burn the boats, you remove the safety net. You eliminate the option of retreat. You make success the only path forward, not because it's comfortable, but because it's necessary. That kind of decision awakens something within you that most people never discover, a raw, unshakable strength that lies dormant until it's summoned by desperation, urgency, and fire. People often speak of motivation as if it's all they need, but motivation fades, comfort erodes it, distraction steals it, but when you've committed fully, when you've burned the boats, you stop waiting for the right time. You stop depending on mood, you stop asking what if it doesn't work, and start declaring I will make it work. There is no going back, and in that psychological place, you find clarity, resourcefulness, and courage you didn't even know you had. That's the paradox. Most people wait to feel strong before they commit, but real strength comes after the commitment. Total commitment doesn't just increase your effort, it multiplies your capacity. When you take away the option to quit, the mind begins to search for solutions with new intensity. You become willing to do what others won't, to endure what others can't, to risk more, to stretch further, to fight harder. You move beyond the limits that held you back, not because the limits disappeared, but because your determination became greater than your fear. There is a power in deciding that failure is not the end, it's just a temporary condition to overcome. When there's no plan B, you give everything to plan A, and that's when breakthroughs happen. That's when progress accelerates. That's when doors open that would have stayed shut had you allowed yourself an exit. Burning the boats is not reckless. It is focused. It means you've weighed the cost, accepted the risk, and decided that your dream is worth more than your comfort. It means you're not going to let your potential rot in the land of indecision. It means your hunger outweighs your doubt. The moment you cut off escape and say, this is it, I am all in, you unlock a force inside you that cannot be explained, only experienced. The people who change their lives, who alter history, who rise from nothing, they all reach a point where they commit so deeply that the universe itself seems to respond. Because life rewards the one who moves forward without retreat, without excuses, without fear. Total commitment doesn't just change your actions, it changes who you are. And in becoming that version of yourself, you discover that the impossible was never out of reach. It was only waiting for you to burn the boats. Action is the final proof of thought power. You can think, you can imagine, you can believe, but until you act, none of it becomes real. Thought is the seed, but action is the harvest. The world is filled with people who talk about their plans, who dream grand dreams, who fill journals and conversations with what they want to become. But those who rise, those who conquer, those who transform their lives, they are the ones who take that inner vision and bring it into motion. Action is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, between what lives in the mind and what shows up in the world. Without it, even the most powerful thought remains only a possibility, never a reality. You cannot think your way into a new life if your actions remain tied to your old habits. Power lies not just in what you believe, but in what you do with that belief. Every great transformation begins with a thought, but it must be carried by disciplined, deliberate effort. People say knowledge is power, but that's only half true. Knowledge becomes power only when it moves you to do something, to change something, to build something. The strongest belief, if not acted upon, is just a whisper in the wind. It is action that gives thought its muscle, its substance, its proof. When you act on your thoughts, even in the smallest way, you begin to shift reality. You move energy. You create momentum, and momentum is where power multiplies. A single step in the direction of your vision activates forces that no amount of silent thinking ever could. You don't need perfect timing or perfect plans, you need movement. Clarity grows in motion. Confidence grows in doing. Progress grows in persistence. It is not enough to wish, to hope, or to prepare endlessly. At some point, the thinker must become the doer. That is the moment when real change begins. Action also tests your thoughts. It reveals whether your belief is deep or shallow. It shows you what needs to be strengthened. It teaches, it refines, it sharpens. And as you act, you become. You become the kind of person who doesn't just dream, but builds, who doesn't just plan, but produces, who doesn't just think, but creates. Thought is the origin, yes, but action is the proof. It is how you show the world and yourself that you mean what you believe. Without action, your thoughts are like sparks with no flame, but with action, those sparks become fire, and fire can change the world. The impossible is not a wall, it is a mirror reflecting the limits of your belief. But once you learn to command your thoughts, fuel them with purpose, and act with relentless resolve, the mirror shatters. You are not here to wish for greatness, you are here to build it. You are not a prisoner of circumstance, you are the architect of destiny. Every vision you've imagined, every dream you've whispered in silence is waiting on one thing, your decision to rise. Burn the boats. Cut the excuses. Step forward with fire in your mind and action in your hands. The world does not yield to doubt. It yields to conviction. It follows the one who leads with belief and proves it through action. Let your life become undeniable proof that thought, when backed by courage and commitment, creates the extraordinary. Think boldly, act fearlessly, and watch the impossible become inevitable.